It's Mina. I hope everyone is doing well. So today I'm gonna finally do a video. I've been trying to record a video for maybe a month, and I've recorded a few times. Had to delete it because there were people in the backgrounds. Wind was blowing. My train of thought was lost. So I finally am doing this. I'm gonna post a blooper basically of trying to record a video when I went to the beach back in New York City about a week and a half ago already. Today's the 29th, so yeah, a week and a half ago already. But yeah, so I am going to have to record that video again. I still have multiple subjects that I want to talk about, but today I want to talk about the word exotic and just like how it's been used like lately and online. So when I was a little girl, teenager in New York City, I remember using the word exotic to identify people who I thought were especially beautiful, and they usually ended up being like biracial or mixed, and usually like black or African American is something else. And oh, and let me anyway, I'll tell you about the braids later. So I remember thinking that and using that word for people who are mixed and biracial, also for Asian people, because I happen to find like a lot of Asian people to be very beautiful. And I'm talking about like all the Asian countries: Japanese, Korean, Chinese, Indian, like just like all different countries, included Filipinos. So yeah, so I just happen to think they're very beautiful. So when I was a teenager, I would ask someone where they were from, and I'd be like, "Oh my goodness, you're so pretty, you're so exotic," or whatever, right? And I stopped saying that. I also stopped asking people where they were from, especially if they were like mixed or biracial, because it came to a point that it sounded like people were not liking the way we were, like the way I would ask the question, the way someone else would ask the question, because they just didn't feel like explaining it, which was fine. So one time when I was like 17 or 18, I was in the subway system in Manhattan, and I saw this really beautiful woman. I could tell she was Asian, right? And I was just like, "Where are you from?" Because I needed to know where this beautiful person was from. Like, what's your background? But I just say, where are you from? And she told me Tibet, and I had never heard about Tibet at that point. I was 16, so I was 17 or 18, like I said, in New York City. Never heard about it at that point. So I ended up researching it, finding out about Tibet. I actually live in a place that has a small Tibetan population right now, but at that time I did not know about Tibet, and you can research Tibet. Tibet has a very rich history. Anyway, and I don't know how big the population of Tibetans are in New York City, but she was the first Tibetan I met in New York City. It was just chance encounter, and I told her, "You're beautiful," and that was that. So in general, I don't go around like calling people exotic. I just say that someone's beautiful. And because of where I live, there's a lot of tourists that come here, and I ask people where they're from, meaning they can I ask people where they're from, meaning like what state are you from or what country are you from, and I don't say like what's your background, what's your racial identity, whatever, whatever, because if I identify someone as being mixed or biracial with a black ancestry, with not black ancestry, black or African DNA, like if it's a woman, I'm more likely going to find out from like being able to have further conversations with her. If it's a guy, it just depends on like the vibes. I might ask him where he's from, but it's not always, I won't always ask if it's a guy. And then like just people, like I said, being from other countries coming here to visit as a tourist thing, it's easy because people get what I mean when I ask them where they're from if I can't guess the language that they're speaking. We've had people here from Brazil, people here from France, Spain, um, maybe Germany, Equatorial Guinea, and a few other places. So I can usually recognize like what people are saying. Equatorial Guinea, they speak Spanish. It's a country in Africa. But yeah, I can usually recognize where people are from if I listen, because I like to eavesdrop with people speaking other languages. I don't eavesdrop when people are doing ASL, American Sign Language, because that's rude. But I do eavesdrop when people speak other languages, especially Spanish or Hindi. Like, I will listen because I want to see what words, what sentences I'm catching. If they're speaking English, I tend not to eavesdrop because I don't want to hear what most people are saying in English. Yeah. Anyway, unless I'm having a conversation with someone. So, yeah, so the word exotic, growing up, it was a word that was used to describe, for me, in my opinion, people who were especially beautiful, people who had a background that made them seem different from other people in the area we were from. And this is from someone who I thought I was only African American, which is beautiful, fine, perfect. But also being African American, obviously in the USA, like, all of us don't know what our DNA breakdown is, what our ancestry is. So I identified as being African American, not knowing where my people came from. So yeah, exotic to me was always just someone who was unique, beautiful, and from, like, just maybe from someplace different, maybe from a different kind of like ethnic background, even if they shared some similarities with me as well. And so it always was like a positive word. But as I grew up, I stopped calling people exotic because it felt like it was making someone an other. It was making someone less human, like making them be identified as like an animal, a specimen, something not human. And so I stopped using it, and I stopped using it to the point that sometimes I would even be like, don't call someone exotic, like that's rude. And so I would kind of be like that. And so when I started going online and listening to like the black community online, to listen to different subjects that would be spoken about within the black communities, I enjoyed hearing it, and I definitely noticed that when they use the word exotic or preference or whatever, it was kind of like with a negative connotation. And I was like, that's weird, but I always assumed that they were speaking about mixed and biracial women who had black ancestry or black DNA, and also that they were speaking about white or Asian women as well. I don't know how often they would be like they also would be referencing Latinas as well. I don't know how often they would be incorporating like Native women into that, but yeah, it would usually be like they would be referencing, when they would say exotic, biracial women, mixed women who had black ancestry, white women, Asian women, and Latinas. So I personally, FYI for me, like, I personally, there's four races, but I also do consider Latinos to be a group of people who are distinct from like just being white, just being black, being Asian, being Native. So even though they're not an ethnic group, there's multiple ethnic groups amongst Latinos. So I still differentiate them from like the general population when I'm talking about race or ethnicity. So anyway, exotic. So that was, anyway. Okay, so I stopped using that word just because I felt like it was making people seem less human, and kind of telling people not to use that because it's kind of like rude. But once like I said, I started seeing online that people were using it still to kind of be rude to people, calling people preferences, calling people exotic, even like calling people exoticals. Like maybe once or twice I heard that in passing online only. I was like, oh, okay, so yeah, they're definitely trying to make a point that these people are different, whatever, whatever. So when I found the Exoticals United channel, like I said, it was in January of this year or December of last year when I was looking for more information about like colorism online. I still need to do another video about that, but later. So when I saw the Exoticals United channel and got the clarification of what it meant, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And it's like, basically it makes sense, and it's like, it's a slang term. It's predominantly used online, and it just means women, men even, who have been othered in the black community, who are like mixed biracial, who I'm not gonna say it right, but it makes sense, and people, yeah, they could be mixed, they could be light skinned, they could be a dark skinned black person who gets exotified, who gets perceived as being like unique and different and not looking like everyone else from the black community. So I appreciated it because like the black community online is like I found niches that I enjoy a lot, and then there's other parts of the community that I stopped watching and looking at, and I might sneak a peek, see what's going on here and there, but in general, like I'm not subscribed to all those channels, and there's way more like black channels that I don't follow that talk about black subjects, black community, all that good stuff. But I don't follow all of them because I have to be able to listen to the content and understand it and appreciate it and enjoy the person that's doing it. So I don't follow all of them, and I found the ones that I really super enjoy. Okay, so the other thing I want to bring out is like, so even though when I was using it as a kid, like I enjoyed the term because I felt like it was just saying that someone was extra beautiful for whatever reason. And then I stopped using it because I felt like it was making someone seem like less human, even though you can be an exotic human because you could be from an African country, you could be from an Asian country, you can be from Spanish speaking country, you could be from any place in the world and be considered exotic to someone. And the exoticals online are predominantly women who are of African descent in some kind of way, or who are mixed and biracial with African descent in some kind of way. And you could be an exotical and not have any African ancestry too, but the ones that I've been following mostly have some kind of African ancestry, some kind of African DNA. Anyway, so the reason why I wanted to do this video, took me forever to get to this. So when I was back home in New York City, we had the gathering for our grandpa's memorial. It was a dinner, a lunch. It was a lunch because it was at 3 o'clock, and all my relatives came, and my family, um, from what I understand, out of the relatives that have done DNA tests, I think only me and my aunt on my mom's side have done our DNA test, and a cousin who wasn't there because she's not my first cousin. She is a cousin though, so she wasn't at the service. And from what I know, just the three of us have done our DNA test because I've seen them on Ancestry.com. No, four people have done our DNA test from the family, and only my aunt and I were there. And then the rest of the relatives were there. My siblings were there. My first cousins were there, and my nieces, nephews, and older cousins were there. And who else? My uncle, my aunt, and just like family, friends, and all that good stuff. So all those people were there. We all got to talk, chat, and laugh it up, and speak about grandpa. And then when we were going home, I was with my mom and her husband and my stepfather, and we were just talking about family. And my mom was like, "Oh, she's like, my nieces are so exotic, right?" And I was like, the way my mom was saying it was cute because she was just saying they were beautiful. They looked like they were from someplace different than being from the USA. They just looked different from everybody else. And then she said, and then Yamina came along, and she was exotic. People couldn't tell if she was like black or Asian or Spanish girl. And I was like, what? So I got included in that, and I really didn't think of that. So I'm actually the first grandchild out of all of my cousins on that side of the family. On my father's side of the family, I think I'm like the third or fourth. My aunt could tell me. But on my mom's side of the family, I'm the first grandchild. So it was interesting that my mom recognized my cousins looking different, looking exotic, because they look mixed. If people thought they were only like African American, I would be shocked because they looked to me mixed, like, and they're one of them is Jewish and African American, and that's without doing her DNA test, and then the other three are Belgian, African American, and Nigerian, I think. So, and that's not getting into more details than that. So yeah, and I have three cousins from one relative and three cousins from another relative, and they, to me, they all look mixed. They all look beautiful. My whole family is beautiful. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting that I got thrown in there with my mom was bringing that up, because my mom never treated me as different, thank goodness. I'm the oldest. I was her first child. I got the most time with her before I went to foster care for a little while, and then yeah, so the rest is history. I did a video about my foster care experience, and I'll probably talk about it again another time. But I was surprised because I enjoy the Exotical community online. I identify with the Exotical community online, and I also identify with parts of the Black community online. And I am glad that I found both communities, because it's just I love watching YouTube, so it's just nice to have more content to listen to, more content that I understand, appreciate, or learn from, because not everybody has the same experience, no matter how they identify, how they look at themselves, how they perceive themselves, how others perceive them. Like our experiences are all different from each other. So yeah, it was interesting to hear my mom use that word, because I hadn't heard that word in real life, not online, not watching a video, hadn't heard that word used in real life in reference to a person in years, because it just has not been, I haven't heard it in years. So yeah, it was interesting to hear that. My mom, love my mommy. So that's that. That's all I wanted to say. It was just interesting to hear it, and then like use in reference to me, and not in a negative way, not being weird, not being mean or anything. So yeah, that's the end of my video. I'm about to say the end of my story. I will talk to y'all later. Have a good night. Oh, and where's my fan? Okay, I left my fan. Bye.